He was the second African American to get his PhD from Harvard. Here's a bonus question for you. Who knows who was the first African American to get their PhD from Harvard? Looking around, any guesses? The first African American to get their PhD from Harvard was W.E.B. Du Bois. Okay? So after he got all that education behind him, he decided that he wanted to dedicate his whole life to making sure that people of color learned African American history. And he wanted to make sure it was taught at schools. So that was his life's work. And so he chose February as the month that we studied Black history in. And he didn't do it by accident. He chose it because that's when Abraham Lincoln's birthday is. And why is Lincoln's birthday important? Teacher giving the answers. Because Lincoln freed the... There you go. All right. Come on, teacher, don't help them cheat. This is a quote by Dr. Woodson. Those who have no record of what their forebears have accomplished lose the inspiration which comes from the teaching of biography and history. So who can tell me who Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was? Okay, what did he do?
He tried to make whites get along with blacks.
Who knows who Booker T. Washington was? Michael Thomas. Very good. Bonus points. What does the T stand for?
Oh. And I don't know.
Nope, not Tuskegee. Not Thomas. Jalen. That's it. Talaferro. Good job. Question 2. Who was the first African American woman to earn a pilot's license?
Oh my God!
In 19...
Michael Thomas.
I heard an answer over here. Say it out loud.
Bessie Coleman.
Bessie Coleman. That's right. Bessie Coleman. So that's Bessie Coleman. So the story of Bessie Coleman is also a wonderful story. She wanted to fly in a time that many of us wouldn't have liked to fly. Look at my mom back there. She doesn't like to fly now.
Amen.
So she went to learn to fly, and guess who knew how to fly in this country? Only white pilots, and they didn't want to teach her. So she was advised that France was not racist, and that if she really wanted to learn to fly, she should go to France. So first she had to learn French, and she did.
Okay.
And then in 1920, she went over to France. And then in 1921, she had her license, and she came back to the U.S. because she wanted to start a school here to teach other people of color how to fly. To earn money, she participated in air shows. And those were really dangerous at the time. She crashed her plane, got really hurt, recovered, and then had another crash, and that one was fatal. We still remember her because she was the first woman to do what she did.
Wow.
So her story is amazing. All right, other questions? Who was Henrietta Lacks? That's a hard one. Mom and Dad may have to help you.
Give it to us.
You know? That's right. I will accept that answer. Say it again.
She had blood cancer from her.
That's right. She's a pivotal person in cancer research. So that is important. So her story is she had cancer and she went to the hospital and her cells were stolen from her. And there are a multi-billion-dollar industry. We still use her cells today, but her family didn't get any money from that. What about Rosa Parks? Who's Rosa Parks? That's right. That's right. Very good. Okay. Who is considered to be the inventor of the potato chip? Sierra? Nope. Young gentleman in the green hat. You have to get up. That's right. That's right. George Crumb. Did you know a black person invented potato chips? You eat them every day, you didn't know. So how the story goes is that George Crumb his mother was a Native American, his father was black. He worked as a guide for part of his life, and then he went to a restaurant. And while he was working in that restaurant, someone ordered some fried potatoes, and they didn't like them. And so they sent him back to the kitchen. And he got kind of upset because they sent the food back. So he said, all right, I'm going to cut them thinner, fry them harder, and salt them up. And the guy loved them. So it became a really popular dish. And they started just cooking them like that and leaving them on the tables so people could have them. He never patented the invention. So he didn't get credit. Now in the town that he invented this chip, there's a sign to his name. But the Lay's company came along and patented the process. So, but it's nice to know who made the first batch, right? That's right. All right, who was George Washington Carver?
He made healthy stuff. He made cheese, soap, and other things too. Out of peanuts.
There you go. What about Lewis Latimer? That's a hard one. No hands. So Lewis Latimer is one of the top 10 black inventors of all time. Who knows what the telephone is? Who invented the telephone that you know in the history books? Did you know that the patent was written by Lewis Latimer? And what about the light bulb? Who gets the credit? But did you know that Lewis Latimer worked with Edison on the light bulb? He actually had the patent for the filament in the light bulb. So two of the biggest inventions that you know about, credited to other people, wouldn't exist without Lewis Latimer. That's interesting, huh? Yeah. Who was the first director of the American Red Cross? Changed medicine by giving us a system that allowed transfusion of plasma. Jared? Who? Gentleman sitting next to Jared. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. There you go. I don't know where you kept that answer from. It wasn't up there. Dr. Drew. So Dr. Drew was interesting because he was born into an affluent neighborhood that afforded him a good education. And he was able to go to medical school rather easily. He went to Canada school. And then he got a research fellowship in New York at Presbyterian Hospital. And that research fellowship was for him to look into the uses of blood and plasma. So he learned how to separate it, and then he went to Europe to perfect it, and started the first blood banks actually in Britain. Came back to the U.S. during World War II and set up the American Red Cross. Now, during that time, they actually segregated the blood. So there was blood for white people from white people, blood for black people from black people. And Dr. Drew did not agree with that process. He said it didn't make any sense to do blood that way. So they asked him to leave the Red Cross. He died while traveling to Tuskegee Institute to do a talk. He was in a car accident. So he died rather young. All right, there were some other people on that slide. Let's test your knowledge. Who was Percy Julian? Caden. That was an accident. Okay. Percy Julian. No? He invented something that you probably use when you're sick. Yeah. What type? Steroids. He invented steroids. Yeah. Who knows who J. Marion Sims is? That's a tough one. Mom and Dad, some of these are for you and you're silent. J. Marion Sims? No? So he's a villain in history. A villain.
Yes.
No? So J. Marion Sims is thought to be the father of gynecology, but he did his work on slave women, black slaves. He would do experiments on them. And his work is now known to be unethical because they were not willing. Okay? All right. 1893, first open heart surgery. Daniel Hale Williams. Ooh, oh my God. So that's Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. In 1893, there was a young African-American gentleman who had suffered serious stab wounds to the chest. So this wasn't a planned procedure. This young man was going to die. And because of that situation, he decided to do the operation. And the gentleman's name was James Cornish. He did the surgery on Mr. Cornish, and guess what? After 51 days, he survived and recovered and left the hospital, and he lived for 50 more years. Wow. Isn't that incredible?
Yes.
The other nice thing to know about Dr. Williams, he was in a time where medical organizations were segregated. So the American Medical Association, which I am now a member, did not allow black doctors. So black doctors had no voice in America. So he founded the National Medical Association, which still lives today. He's one of the founding members. And it was a national organization for black doctors to have a political voice in this country. So he's a very important person in our history.
Yes.
Who was Harriet Tubman? Harriet Tubman.
What is it?
Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman. Michael Thomas.
Choose the leader of the underground.
Tamaya. Wah, 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 wah. Garrett Morgan. Oh. There he is. What else? You know his other invention? Traffic light is one. What's another famous one? Gas mask. There you go. All right, who am I? Who is that? All right. Dr. Ben Carson, I heard someone played him today. Dr. Thomas did a great job. Dr. Carson is a pediatric neurosurgeon. Do you know what a neurosurgeon is?
Yes.
Operates on brains, that's right. And he's important to history because he did one of the first twin separations in this country. They were joined at the brain. And he was awarded a Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2008. And now, as you know, he's part of our presidential candidate race right now. Okay? Very nice. Love it. All right, you ready for another Who Am I? Who's next? Very good. Very good job. President Barack Obama. He's your 44th and current president of the United States. And I don't have to tell you, he's the first African American president in this country. A two-term current sitting president. So very good. Who am I?